Good afternoon, chat. As promised, I am back at the noon-ish time frame. I know I am not precisely on time, and therefore you will all be angry about something. But regardless, I have here with me the Polish-American Brotherhood, or at least so she is kindly called herself. I know this has been very confusing for all of you. I have indeed been reading chat. Regardless, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and let people know what you do?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tara Szczepanski, and my program on YouTube is called the Polish-American Brotherhood. And so I had initially started this program as a history between Poland and America to educate people about Polish Americans. And with that, I pivoted over to covering history in the making, particularly when the Tadeusz Kościuszko statue, who's a Polish-American Revolutionary War hero, was attacked during the BLM riots that erupted last summer. And with that, I dived into streaming protests, marches, and rallies, and bringing that content, raw and footage, over to you guys.
So, forgive me, I think this connection just happened in my head right now. Were you in New York getting chased down by Black Lives Matter about 2 weeks ago now?
Yes, that was me. I was so I had attended what was marketed as a anti-racism and anti-fascist rally, which AKA BLM and Antifa rally. And so on January 10th, they started off in Central Park and went down Fifth Avenue and then ended over in Madison Square Park. Now, this rally was a counter-protest to a Stop the Steal rally that was initially planned to begin in Columbus Circle. So that one had subsequently been canceled after January 6th, and the Antifa and BLM rally continued on. And so I was covering the footage of when they were marching down Fifth Avenue, chanting "Death to America" and other profanities. And so they don't like journalists very much. And so I saw them harassing other journalists in Madison Square Park. And I was the one that said, I'm not turning off my live stream. And so that's when they began initially attacking me. And it was a series of 2 attacks that happened to me on that day. The second one was when they had identified who I was, that I was Tara with the Polish-American Brotherhood. Them not knowing history started calling me a Nazi. They're like, that's Tara.
Well-known Polish Nazis.
Exactly. So they led a mob of about 230 BLM Antifa people chasing me through the park, and then I ran towards the police and I asked for help because I had already been assaulted by the mob. It was one on 2030. They hit me with the umbrellas. They sprayed an aerosol string at me from the front. So they use like tactical training a little bit, that they distract you from the front. And then so when somebody was spraying me from the front, another individual came and hit me with a skateboard from the back.
It's getting to be a pretty common thing to see.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting that it was marketed as an anti-racism rally when, as you guys can clearly see, I'm also mixed Asian, and so there's a lot of interesting things that happened that day, from asking the police, the NYPD, for help, to them pointing literally away from me and saying 6 feet away. And when I continued to ask the police for help, they were on their bicycles and they literally scootered off. So it was an absolutely fantastically different day than I had ever experienced.
Yeah, I remember watching this, actually. It's why I asked, because I don't remember if I was restreaming that or not, but I think I was. And I was, if I wasn't, the point here of this would have been, look, this, dear chat, when I am out running around DC at 2 a.m. with the Proud Boys, and you guys are like, oh my God, be safe. And I say, look, there's 200 Proud Boys here. I'm as safe as I'm going to get. This is what I'm talking about. Because if you don't have 200 Proud Boys, they are perfectly happy to show up and throw things at you. And, prior to finding the Proud Boys on one of those nights, I was walking around behind Antifa, and they started shining lasers in my eyes and all the stuff that they're well known to do. And I mean, this is unironically who these people are. And it is incredible to me in the world of a thing that is probably going to become a meme on this channel. We were talking a little bit off stream about how the portrayal of this in modern media is either that it is non-existent or that it was all a peaceful protest and that, some Nazis showed up and they told them to go away. And, you go watch these live streams as they're happening. And what you find out is there's one person with a camera there. And that person is getting everything from bricks to skateboards to, all kinds of stuff thrown at them. The cops thing I thought was really interesting, though, right? Because there's been a decent amount of talk on the internet that, look, the cops just don't have your back anymore, right? They let Antifa run the world, and they're not on your side, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think I have seen few clearer examples of that than that stream that you ran in New York. Because that was cops that, hey, could you guys do something about this? And all of them look over and then immediately look away.
Yeah, that is definitely what I had experienced on that day. But following that incident, I did file a report with the NYPD and press charges against 3 of the individuals, ranging from misdemeanor assault to felony assault. Because if you hit somebody with a skateboard, that's a felony assault. And so they did seem very sympathetic and genuinely disappointed in the actions of the police that were present on that day. And the NYPD did put together media and press releases to be finding the people who had assaulted me on that day, so that they are taking action in my case. Whether or not these individuals be brought to justice is another thing, because of course they wear their masks, and actually one of the individuals had a very clear shot of his face and everything. So actually these individuals, they are dangerous people. They are wanted for other assaults. I'm not the only person that they've hurt. And so when the NYPD had seen my footage streamed, they had recognized some of the people that were there, and that's why they had brought me in to identify them.
See, now that makes what happened on the ground at the time seem extra silly and ridiculous to me, right? Not that I expect every cop on every corner to know every single person that, the police department as a whole is looking for. But this was the story that we were told about, things like speeding tickets for 50 years. It was John Wayne Gacy, I think, or not John Wayne Gacy, Dahmer was caught because of a speeding ticket. And, look, over the course of regular police work, we find these people, and then we find out that they're attached to some other crime. And so, even if you don't like a lot of the regular everyday police work stuff, and sometimes we don't blame you, understand that it does produce other things. It's as often as not an everyday cop doing an everyday job. And the simple reality of that situation is there was a half dozen, maybe a dozen cops standing there at any given time, depending on which group. If they had just turned around and said, okay, you guys, that's it, in the cuffs, in the cars, nobody'd be looking for anybody, right? It'd be, okay, right, we need to go down to the jail and hand these guys paperwork for additional charges, and it would all be over now.
Correct. I was in, when I was in D.C., in December for Stop the Steal, which I believe was on December 12th. I did cross through BLM Plaza, which seems to be the center of the universe for Antifa, where they have a fence filled with propaganda, like obscenities towards Trump. And then so I went there to which is my right, to be taking down those signs because they're leftover trash. And I think it's our civic duty to be cleaning up that trash, especially when it's obstructing our view to the White House and it's abandoned. It's not anybody's property. The differences of, like signs and whatnot, this is abandoned. And so when I went to pull down the sign, and a Antifa thing, I'm not sure if she was male or female, but she came up and she pushed me up against the fence. And then so nobody has the right to ever touch another individual. And then so a police was present and actually stepped in and said, hey, you need to stop it. And it thing was initially thinking the police officer was talking to me, and then turned to the police like, yeah, you have to stop it. And the police officer is like, no, you need to stop it, because that's assault. You're touching her. You pushed her up against the wall, and you don't have the right to do that. Nobody has the right to ever touch you. And the only rights that we have in this country is for the rights for people to leave us alone. And so when people are actually encroaching into your personal space, into your body, or to your property, that's when they are actually in the wrong. And so some of the feedback that I'd received was, because since I pulled down signs over at BLM Plaza in DC, that this somehow justified the assault that happened to me in New York.
Oh, that escalated quickly. So I am consistently told, right? If someone does something that is against the law to you, go visit the cops. The cops will take care of it. This is why you're not supposed to just beat the hell out of people who do, something otherwise kind of innocuous in your, to you or whatever. Somebody spray paints your driveway or whatever. You go, hey, look, that guy spray painted my driveway. Go get him for vandalism. Just clean it up, whatever. Apparently, this is no longer how this is going to work.
Correct.
The thing is, it really only works one way. And this is a thing that I think is going to cause bigger problems, right? Because make no mistake, the cops, when I was wandering around D.C., I think on the 12th is the day that we're talking about. It turns out we've been in a lot of the same places at a lot of the same times.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you cross paths with the Proud Boys, you probably saw me around there too, because I do film them quite often. Yeah,
that's funny. Me too. There was a while there where I was becoming Proud Boys TV, and the Antifa would run over and start fights, pepper spray people. The laser thing is pretty consistent. They'd throw stuff at you, water bottles, all kinds of stuff. And the cops would sort of just come in and go, okay, guys, just get on the other side of the street. And you'd see them occasionally come after one person. It's really hard to tell in that big of a melee which side any person's on. But specifically after the Proud Boys got what amounts to uniforms, you could tell right quick, right? And it seemed to me that the lines were, when Antifa stabs somebody, the cops will go after that guy. Other than that, they're going after Proud Boys,
Mm-hmm. We need to stand up, and I know that's why me and you and I are talking today. It's like, what does that look like in terms of how we can deal with the leftist mobs? Whether that is, as conservatives, we tend to vocalize and express ourselves, but how is that going to be effective now when the left utilizes violence? And in our current pop culture, it seems like that violence is to be celebrated, while our verbal expressions on the right side tends to be villainized.
Definitively. The first Stop the Steal rally was the 8th or something. Like it was immediately after the election. I was down there for that one, and
me too. In DC, in November.
Taking all kinds of video, and I'm out there at night and I'm recording stuff, live streaming it, and generally speaking, in a less than shocking turn of events, Proud Boys, the MAGA crowds in general, pretty peaceful bunch when left alone. And then when Antifa shows up and starts throwing stuff at people or beating them or what have you, they get a little bit less peaceful, which seems like the way it's supposed to work to me, right?
If you have the right to a self-defense, absolutely.
You would think, right? If you come up and hit me in the face, make no mistake, I'm swinging back at you. I'm not going to start that fight, but I'm perfectly happy to end it. And somehow or another, I got up the next morning and I started looking at all the news articles. Oh, MAGA protest turns violent. There's violence in D.C. as soon as... And I'm watching this, and, by now I should know better because I've been doing this for years. But I'm going, this is even a little over the top for the news media, right? I've been watching D.C., Seattle, Minneapolis, Dallas, every major city in America, light on fire for 6 months. And you want to tell me that Antifa jumping people is the fault of conservatives? I mean, where is the line here? And I don't think there is one. And I think the problem with that is that, in my opinion, the right, to answer your question, the right is very scared of standing up against these people because you will be demonized, right? And at this point, I think we know the FBI will come for you. Just looking at what's been going on with Enrique Tarrio is enough to say, man, they will come for you and they will come hard. But I think that if this keeps going like this, right, where there's no pressure release valve, where you're not allowed to stand up for yourself and your friends and, just some people who generally agree with you when they get assaulted, the output of that eventually will be a lot of violence and a giant amount, right? When I moved to Texas a couple of years ago, and when I did is when Antifa was saying, oh, we're coming to Texas. And nearly every small town paper in the state printed something to the effect of, oh, you want to come here and be violent? Don't threaten Texas with a good time. You're not going to enjoy the way this is going to go. You better understand we have more guns than you. We have, we've loved guns since the beginning of time. And I think that's going to end up what actually happens if what we do is let Antifa go through cities, burn them down, and hurt people.
Because you can notice that how the violence on Antifa is happening in democratic cities. It's not in places like Texas and red states where this kind of behavior would not fly at all. When you have when in Democrat cities, and they know that they can get away with such behavior that they're, even if they're arrested, they're quickly released without charges. Like in a red state, that behavior isn't going to fly. And plus, when the regular citizens are allowed to stand your ground, Texas does have more guns than the Antifa side does, and we don't want the Antifa side to be arming up at the same time. But they are increasing in their violence with the use of Molotov cocktails, and they look to pick on those who are vulnerable people. We saw that in DC when families would start to split off from the rallies, from the groups. That's when they would be targeted. And even in my own assault experience on January 10th, it's because when I refused to turn off my stream, there were other journalists that were present, but I was a single female that was present there, and I look more vulnerable than other people who maybe came in teams together to be reporting.
Yeah.
And also that are physically bigger than me or are male. And so the thing is, like I knew that when the mob was attacking me, a 20-30 on one scenario was never going to fly in my favor, even if I decided to punch back at that moment, which would have been my right to. But I also know that the way the media frames incidences to happen is the moment that I would have been the one to punch back when they identified that I was a Trump supporter, the narrative that would have hit the mainstream media would have been Trump supporter attacks innocent BLM protester at anti-racist rally.
Yeah. Well,
and I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction.
I think the best example of that was the DC rally where 4 people got stabbed, right? Yeah. And every mainstream media outlet printed this picture of very clearly a Proud Boy. He's wearing the Proud Boy uniform, and he's got both, one fist flying forward and the other one coming back. And they cut that at about waist level. And the same picture, the one that they were using that was going around the internet, just below waist level, you can see the guy bringing the knife up. And I went, so all of the times that anyone has ever said you're an overt liar, you're just confirming that as hard as possible, right? And I will say that it is nice to see how many people are getting angry about that sort of thing. Most of what I spend my time doing is saying that we need to get up and do literally anything about this, right? And that, to the idea that if you're walking around, in New York, or when I have been walking around DC, it's been, look, take at least 5 people with you. Because it turns out that Antifa are a giant quantity of cowards. They'll show up with 200 people and not fight 5 people.
Yeah. They're soy boys. So, yeah, they are cowards. I mean, what else are you going to describe a mob of 20 and 30 on one single female?
Oh, yeah. And it's, the thing with the old lady and her grandkid, I think, or, whatever it was that was the first one of these in D.C., it's pretty well their MO at this point. They'll go after Andy No because he walks by himself through them. And look, to the Andy No subject, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Look, guy, you don't have to flee the country. Just move to a place that has self-defense laws, buy a house, and put a little tiny fence up in front of it. As soon as somebody crosses it, you're good to shoot them.
Texas sounds better every day.
And it does. It's, I see people get doxxed by Antifa all the time, and I've been doxxed a few times by Antifa, so I'm told. But... my answer to Antifa is always the same. Check my local self-defense laws before you come down here to bother me, because you're not going to like it,
Mm-hmm. The thing with doxing, they've doxed me, but since I don't work a corporate job, it is scary for individuals who once, because we're living in a day and age where society, just the accusation of something is enough for condemnation, and it's not. It's not based on truth or fact or anything, because the left side goes for character assassination and then a digital assassination, which then translates into loss of job and income and your ability to be providing food for your family. Yeah. And all because they don't like the way you think and the words that you say. I know so my dad, for instance, my dad's a Soviet refugee into the country, and there's, derogatory terms for Polish. And so when my dad was saying to me, I don't get it when somebody calls me, when somebody calls me a derogatory term, I just tell them I'm proud and I go about my day. That's it. Nobody has, the only power of words that somebody will have over you is the power that you give it. And so we're now living in a culture where we're cultivating a victimhood and oppression mentality. And so words are then, having this more of a trigger effect. And
words are violence.
Yeah, words are violence. And so people are learning to think, because it starts in our popular culture, and that's when it translates into our politics. And so the right ideology has been so villainized to be bad ideology, while the left is now conditioned to be good ideology. So that's why when we have the uprising of violence that occurs on the left, it's commended, it's justifiable, and even speaking out words on the right side is the worst thing ever.
Indeed, there was some idiot leftist activist the other day was dropping stuff on Twitter saying, of course I'm condemning the right for going after the Capitol, and if it was the left, yes, of course I would be supporting them because they would be doing the righteous thing, and of course you don't support Nazis, and I was just, at what point, and I think this is a line that the right as a whole needs to learn. They hate you. They hate me. They hate all of us. And there is no correct answer with these people. And so the last thing on earth that any of us should do is attempt to placate them in any way, right? Because you can't, right? And this was the don't apologize, a year or two ago is, never apologize to them. That's a good start, but stop trying to find common ground with these people. Because they hate you. There's no common ground. And it's not because, there's nothing that we agree on. It is simply that even if you were to find common ground, they would say, okay, we agree on this, but the only reason that you agree is because you're a horrible person who wants to do terrible things. And I am doing this for all the righteous reasons.
Exactly. I was very against cancel culture before, but how are you going to fight cancel culture other than using cancel culture back? What we see often when even in debates, first of all, I don't even know if there's any point to debating a leftist anymore. They just want to get you angry and waste your time. So if you're ever going to debate a leftist, make sure it's in a public forum and use the same tactics that they're using against you. It's for the purpose of trying to embarrass you and take down your character. So if the first thing that these people start with when they're talking with you is to be assassinating your character, calling you a Nazi or a racist, a homophobe, a transphobe, all of that. I remember when I first. Sorry.
This seems a potentially worrying distraction.
Sorry.
As a general premise, though, I agree, right? I get a lot of people on this channel who come to me and say, Don, why don't you debate leftists? And I say, why? What benefit is there to debating leftists, right? And the only thing that is even vaguely a benefit is that somebody on the right will see it and go, oh, hey, maybe you're not a lunatic. But that's it. But the trade-off for that is that, they come for the channel. People will try to get my bank to drop me. Someone will come try and light my lawn on fire. And I don't know that that's a worthy trade, right?
No, it's not.
And so this is the thing. And to the idea that they're there to embarrass you, that they are there to destroy you. Right? This idea that the right has, where we're going to come together and have a battle of ideas. There's no battle of ideas with these people. There is. You are some part of what amounts to the 100-year-long communist revolution, or you are the enemy who must be destroyed in every way imaginable because you are preventing us from getting the communist revolution done. And they unironically stand on this. Like, if you say, well, maybe we shouldn't ruin every single thing that's ever been good on the entire planet, you're a terrible person, and there is no lower limit of what to do with you, right? That, people unironically advancing war crimes by any stretch of the imagination. Not that I'm a big fan of definitions of war crimes as they are, but, maybe we should take these people out in the street and torture them. Excuse me? We're not having a conversation with that person. What's the debate? And this goes right along with something else. Stop trying to compromise with these people, right? Because they have no interest in that either.
Where we're going to need to, because I feel like the right has been very complacent now in the past, like forever long, and that's why we're arriving to the critical point that we are seeing in today's society. And it's because I would say the people on the right are, they have jobs, they're focused on their families, and so they, in a sense, mind their own business. But we need to stop minding our own businesses. We need to step up. We need to start getting involved. Like, even how I started about is being a citizen reporter. We all have cell phones. We all can start shooting footage and putting that on social media, and then trying to just distribute that and raise awareness to what's going on. So even from a simple civilian standpoint, there are things that we can be doing, and I understand that a lot of people are concerned about being vocal about their views because we're facing cancel culture, but they can't fire us all.
Well, and that's another thing, right? Is that in the world of cancel culture, one of those things that I think needs to be done, and I'm actively working on doing, but more than a little limited resource. But an example of it right now is Unwoke. It's like LinkedIn for non-crazy people, and that sort of thing. We need to start looking after each other when people get canceled, and equally speaking, dear everybody, right? Because I say that and I get from some people like, well, I am, a high-powered guy in executive firm, and so if I speak out, are you going to replace that job? Well, no. I don't know what to tell you, right? And if that's the calculus and litmus for you is I can't have exactly what I have now in exactly the way that I have now, then that's always going to be the thing that holds us back, right? Is you're going to have to be willing to give some. So either this is important enough for you to do that or not. And look, if it's not, then okay. Don't go run around crushing other people trying to do it. And two, at least as importantly, if you are that high-powered executive that can't be got somewhere else, but you could give somebody a job, do that, And I think the more that happens, the more that we take care of people on the back end, as it were, of getting canceled, I think the less we will see people worried about being canceled.
Exactly, because we're supposed to be living in a free society, at least, that in living in a free society, issues are supposed to be resolved through words, through discourse, and through civil debate. But how it's an indication that we're no longer in that in that free society is because that's not how we are fixing things.
Yeah.
And so when we have the constant, like when we have constant rioting that's going on, like we haven't addressed to fix those problems because the rioting is still going on. And like what we were saying in Washington and in Oregon, like I saw on Inauguration Day how Antifa was also burning the Biden flags, and then they attacked the Democratic headquarters there as well. So these people will never be satisfied either way. They got Trump out. Now we're living in a Biden America, and they're burning Biden flags.
Well, it's bow the knee to the revolution or get stopped, right? I mean, this is their ethos. They made this sort of clear before the election. Is we don't want Biden, we want revenge, and these sorts of things were getting filmed and pictures taken of them and what have you. But I can't say as I'm surprised that they, as it were, held to their word here. This is just who they are. The dynamic of that I find interesting is that all of a sudden Antifa is a thing that we should send law enforcement after, and it's not just an idea anymore. All of a sudden, once it's coming for the powers that be that are not Trump, then, well, okay, yeah, we can go after them, I guess,
When I went to Portland for the first time was right after the New Year's Eve riots. And so I went from Portland then to Washington, D.C. But that was from the New Year's Eve riots, it was the first time that Portland's mayor had actually even addressed the concept of Antifa, and that city's been absolutely ravaged by Antifa since I believe 2017.
Oh, at least.
And yeah, and that was the first time for the mayor to be acknowledging them as a threat or an organization when the leftist media has just been purporting them always to be as an idea.
Right.
Even my own, like the division that we're having in the U.S. is a division that even I experience in my daily life within my own family, with my mother and my brother being anti-Trump. They're not pro-Biden. There's nobody who's pro-Biden. They're just anti-Trump.
All six people whose last names are Biden that are pro-Biden.
Yeah, you're right. They may be pro-Biden, but even even after what had happened to me and the experiences that I've had with Antifa, and so January 10th, when they assaulted me in Madison Square Park, I also had a run-in with them when I was covering them on the Martin Luther King Day riots that broke out from Barclays Center all the way across Brooklyn Bridge onto City Hall. Yeah. I was present live streaming that as well, and Antifa had also like harassed and punched me there as well. And even with that, my in a sense, my own brother's leftist conditioning so strong, he still purports that they're an idea. And I'm like, last time I checked, an idea wasn't punching me.
Right. I've had few ideas punch me in the face, but at least we've got one now. Therein lies the problem, I guess, right? Because people ask me all the time, Don, I've got leftist family. What do I do about it? And normally, in fact, almost always, my answer is nothing, right? Because for a lot of this, there's nothing you can do. My answer is consistently things like, once this is personal to them, then they'll change their mind. Because that's been the one consistency here. Anything else, and it's just, there's always excuses made. There's always, some sort of deflection, diversion from whatever the point is. And I think this really ought to be an example of just how true that is, because for a lot of us, if someone showed up and started beating the hell out of my family, that would be personal to me. But, and I hate to be so terse about this, for people who are pretty overt leftists, that might not be that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm. Even in the case of Brandon Starka, who's the founder of the Walkaway movement, so he's been arrested, I believe about 2-3 days ago, yeah. And the tip that came in that got him arrested came from a family member.
Yeah.
So to me, that is incredibly eerie of a communist air that we're living in when you're turning in your own family like that.
Yeah, the defenses of that were equally wild, right? Because there have been a few people who did literally anything on the 6th, and their brothers, their sisters, their mothers, fathers, what have you, have turned them in. And if you go through the comment sections and the replies to tweets and what have you, you find a pretty substantial group of people going, good. If you are the kind of person who would do such a terrible thing, then your family should turn you in. And it sounds like the Gulag Archipelago. That's what it sounds like, just hands down. Mama turned in her kid because her kid was counter-revolutionary. And it is, if it's not creepy and terrifying, it should be. Because this is a big line of, who do you trust anymore? And I don't blame people. If you say we should go meet in person somewhere, the first thing you get is, oh, so you're a Fed trying to arrest us. Well, no, and if that's not clear by now, it never will be. But I get why you're worried,
I get it if you're turning in like a family member who maybe is being sought after for like a mass murder or something, truly heinous.
Yeah.
But you and I were both present there on January 6th with the amount of people that were also present, like in the millions, that were all supportive. And your typical, like, the experiences that I've had at other Trump rallies are people who are very patriotic, who are singing, who are lively, who are happy, who are there in genuine spirit of America, and not like you do have some people who did create, like, vandalism or hit the windows and acted the way they had, but then you have people who were trying to stop them from acting that way, and that represents the vast majority of people that were present on that day.
Yeah.
And then so even the people that had gone inside, I mean, you look at the images of families who look more like tourists,
Yeah.
who are staying within the boundaries of ropes as they're walking through and taking selfies. I'm like, these are not hardened criminals who are out for mass destruction. And the way that the media has now been portraying this as an insurrection has made everybody who is now present there to be this horrible, like, terrorist person, when they're not.
And this is, I find it, well, maybe worrying's not the right word, concerning, right? Because there is a thing that happened around the 6th where even generally conservative commentators very suddenly just ate the propaganda hook, line, and sinker. And it was truly wild watching people that I knew had otherwise been intelligent enough to read a news story and go, yeah, that's just nonsense, all of a sudden go, oh my God, it was an insurrection. I was like, look, man, go watch the video. It was not an insurrection. This was not 9/11. And whether anybody wants to hear this or not, because this became a thing a couple days later, they could have burned down the building. Yeah, they could have. And literally nobody could have stopped them. So what you can take from that is they didn't want to burn down the building. If you have the option to do something,
common sense there,
right? If you have the option to do something and no one can stop you, if it happened, you wanted to do it. If it didn't happen, you didn't want to do it. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. But no less, what you get now is, oh my God, it was terrible, and these people were terrorists, and I see the comparisons basically everywhere. Is this was 9/11. Nobody crashed a plane into the Capitol building, because if they did, one, I would probably be dead, because I was pretty close to the Capitol building. I wouldn't be here to have this conversation with you, but if they did,
we'd be having this conversation actually in heaven together,
right?
I was in the same area as you, so
much less YouTube, much more post salvation, but. If that sort of thing had happened, if I don't know, literally anything of that sort of mass violence had happened, then, we wouldn't be here doing this. And so, okay, they'd have a good point. But this goes right along with the other thing, is that these people had firearms. And, the right is the gun-toting redneck. Here, I got a beard you could fit a hamster in without a problem, right? I'm wearing a baseball cap. We are the people who own all guns. If we wanted to run an insurrection, I promise you, thousands upon thousands of firearms marching into D.C. going, you know what, that's it, the city's ours. And there's a very high likelihood there's nothing anybody could have done about it. And once again, if you have the option to do something and nobody could have stopped you and you didn't do it, it's because you didn't want to. And this seems so blindingly obvious to me. And yet somehow or another we're still running this narrative. And people, again, otherwise intelligent people, still believing it. And I've had a few people come to me and go, "Oh, so you're saying because they could have brought guns? Oh, what are you threatening the Capitol?" Yes, that's what I'm doing, you idiot. You know,
it's what people are using against is actually protected rights. You know, you have your Second Amendment right, and they're villainizing something that isn't an actual protected right. And there are amendments, like, I believe that what sets America apart is these American concepts that you won't find in the rest of the world that has made America exceptional. And then, so I see that our amendments are God-given rights. And so with the Second Amendment, that too is a God-given right. And people are villainizing the concept of even of owning a gun. And then so for example, just me as a journalist, when I was being attacked on January 10th, they were pointing at me saying, "She's got 2 cameras." And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock, I'm a journalist. But they were villainizing the fact that I had 2 cameras. And so I shouted back at them saying, "The better to record you." And actually I had, this is what I can't keep my mouth shut, even if it's a mob of 20 or 30. But they're like, "She's got 2 cameras." And I'm thinking, actually, I have 3. And I just yell back at them, "The better to record you." And they knocked the microphone out of my hand. They're like, "She's got a microphone." That's when I was like, really? Like, it's idiotic. But they were treating my equipment as a journalist with August, like it was as if I had a gun, because that's what was my ammo. And then the thing is, freedom of the press is a First Amendment right.
Yeah.
And so actually my presence being in Madison Square Park in a public area, recording it for media, is a God-given constitutional amendment, First Amendment right. And the reason there's, for things to be a First Amendment, that shows a prioritization of freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and these public spaces. And so they're attacking me as if I'm the one who's the villain for it, when nobody has the right for physical assault. And so and for people to have been justifying the physical assault on me because I've had my expressions of being a Trump supporter, of taking out the trash in BLM Plaza, and then those unrelated events, to then justify what's happening to me on that day. But it just shows that how people have been conditioned to be against certain things. So they're so conditioned against the Second Amendment because they're equating, school shootings. And I'm speaking because I'm a walkaway. I'm a very recent walkaway. I became a Trump supporter. Actually, I remember this day distinctly. August 6th is when I rose my flag and I said, I support President Trump. And before that, I hated him. I thought he was a racist. I thought he was homophobic. Like everything that all the leftists want you to believe, I believe that. So I can understand the mentality that was coming from the left side. So I was against the Second Amendment because I thought it was the cause of the school shootings. And now in learning more about it, it's just been equated to school shootings to turn you against the Second Amendment. And so now that they're trying to turn us against freedom of speech, freedom of the press. So an instrument that I would use, a microphone and a camera, is also now villainized. But it shows how sensitive and how absolutely ridiculous that can be. Because on January 7th, I had I'm constantly censored on social media. So one of the strikes that I got was I danced MAGA to YMCA. And so that earned me a strike as inciting violence.
Oh,
me dancing
reasonable.
MAGA to YMCA was struck down as incitement for violence. And I posted that video months prior on November 4th. And so now on January 7th, it's taken down as incitement for violence. I get a 7-day strike that I can't post. And also I posted footage from January 6th. That got me another 3-month ban from live streaming from Facebook, which I was already serving a sentence for another 3 months for posting footage of pro-Trump rallies.
Yeah, that is becoming the story of all of our lives. One of my January 6th videos on YouTube, it has I think the most recent comment is, "The FBI will love this. Good job for posting it, idiot. I'm going to report you to the FBI tip line." I was like, okay, go ahead. And what do you think will come of that? The FBI will knock at my door and go, how dare you record things? Because, look, I don't like going to court. I don't want to be in court. But you better believe I'll walk in with a smile if what you do is take me to court for taking video, right? By all means, let's ride. Let's do this. We will suddenly have a lot more resources around here when I countersue the FBI for millions and millions of dollars for infringing on my First Amendment rights. Come on down. Let's do it anytime, And to the earlier thing about this, though, it's any excuse, right? And because the left is more than happy to see Antifa take video of you and say that, you were a MAGA supporter who was anywhere near January 6th. And if you are... I don't know, to the right of Mao, and you took video there, it's, oh my God, you're an insurrectionist rioter, and we need to put you in jail. And this is the way you treat your enemies, right? Just unironically. And back to the earlier, we need to stop giving these people quarter. That's how they treat us, right? Is you're the enemy. And look, I know for a lot of people, oh, Don, if you're saying they're the enemy, we might as well shoot them. Well, okay, hold off on that. If they come for you, do what you have to. But don't go seek them out and shoot them. But don't ever assume they will treat you even vaguely fairly, because they will go out of their way to not. Just yes. Assume that they hate you and will do whatever they can to destroy you.
100%. That's why, when, even if you're engaging in conversation, like I said, don't bother debating unless you're going to be in a public forum with a leftist, because they're just trying to waste your time. But call them out on, because they'll start off with character assassinations. They will start off with framing an argument that makes you racist or makes you homophobic, transphobic, all the isms. They'll start off with that. So because none of the points will ever be to the points. So you want to make sure that they answer the questions. So focus on getting them to answer the questions. If not, you're probably not going to change that person's mind. But for the audience that's watching, you want the audience to start questioning. And for me, that was very impactful for when I was going down my own rabbit hole of research. And so whoever was debating, I'm pretty sure they weren't changing each other's minds, but it helped to influence me. And then so that's how, on a ground level, like I was saying, on our own social media channels, as long as they're up, they're definitely trying to take us all down. And when they say, go start your own, they took down Parler. So, what can we do now to be going against these big tech? But in our conversations that we're having with people, call them out, frame the question, because they're not going to treat you fairly. So if they're going to be starting off with calling you a racist, call them out call them out for being jerks. Even I find that conservatives we like to stick too much to the argument itself, with the assumption that the other person's going to stick to the points in the argument.
Definitely.
They're not. So you need to speak, like I always say, you need to speak like a Democrat, but you need to think like a Republican.
Well, this is I think my favorite juxtaposition of this was John McCain, who there's an endless supply of complaints to have. But if you go back to when he was running for president, there was this, probably the most famous thing he did while running for president. He's out in front of this audience, and he says, he gets to the end of his little motivational speech, and he says, well, does anybody have any questions? And somebody in the crowd yells out loud as they can, Barack Obama is a Muslim. And he said, and he's a terrorist. And McCain picks up the mic and he holds it real close and he says, no, don't say things like that. Barack Obama's a good man that we disagree with. And on the same day, Joe Biden is over there going, they're going to put you back in. I'm sorry, that was the Romney thing. Is they're going to put you back in chains. But Biden's over there talking about how he's a warmonger. Obama's talking about how McCain just wants to kill brown people because he, that's why he wants to be president, so that we can just bomb the Middle East, and on and on and on and on it went. And it's quite literally 50 years summed up in one little interaction, where the right wing will come by and go, oh no, they're just incorrect about something. And the left will go, these people are going to eat your children.
Exactly. Exactly. So we need to not stand up for them to create, to correct the framing of that narrative, because they're not going to do that for you, and they're going to paint a much worse picture of you. And that was an excellent point that you brought up, because Americans, they would rather vote for a nice person who's incompetent, as long as they're a nice person, than a person they perceive as a bad person but can get the job right.
I think, I don't know. I think you have to do the insulting in a way that's socially acceptable, and then people eat it up, right? Because, and make no mistake, Obama had a lot of, the first black president. Like, well, look, man, I'd have elected Thomas Sowell any time that he ran ever, But that doesn't matter. It needed to, it needed to be Obama, the crazy lunatic, and therefore you could call people a racist for disliking him. But this is the thing, is I don't think most of the right has insults, as it were, has derogatory things to say about the left that are socially acceptable, right? So if you want to go after somebody on the left, calling them baby killer, well, let's face it, this doesn't matter. Nobody cares. The right's been doing it for years. If you want to preach to the base, then go ahead, call them baby killer, right? But I think at some point what we need to do is stop trying to have the debate of ideas, because so many, well, one, it doesn't matter for all the reasons we've gone over. Yeah. However, the way to go forward with that is just, okay, look, I'm wrong about everything. Please explain to me what's correct. Because as soon as you get these people doing that, oh boy, do you lose people quick. Oh, what we're going to have to do is put all the people who are like you but unwilling to learn in gulags. You're gonna what?
The re-education camps in AOC's list.
Exactly, right?
That's their ideas, and they don't realize how it's mirroring exactly. They want communism when you have these type of tactics that are being used, and that's why also I was against BLM from the start, was because I recognized the Marxist tactics that they were using.
Indeed.
And then the things I think we need to focus on going forward, though, is, all right, so I attended multiple Stop the Steal rallies. I went to Georgia, I went to Arizona, and multiple times to DC. And so especially in Georgia and Arizona, what happened there, Florida, we always had issues before. Like DeSantis really reeled it in to make sure that the issues that we've had during our elections and votes did not occur. So Florida was very smooth for probably the first time ever. I remember the hanging Chad votes, and I was a child at that time. And so the tactics and improvements that Florida has made, Georgia and Arizona need to do those exact same approaches. So that way the problems that we had in Georgia and Arizona don't happen again in the future, because the election was stolen, and we need to make sure we have clear, transparent voting process that because they're trying now to pass no voter ID is necessary. They're ensuring that a Republican candidate is never going to be able to make it again with what they're passing. So we need to fight this. So we need to fight for a clear and transparent election, and for the laws that are in place for how our election process takes place. I mean, I used to work as an auditor before for finance, and so if we're doing year-end financial audits for our big businesses, why aren't we doing that for our voting process? I mean, to audit the vote, it gives the reassurance to know that it happened appropriately and correctly. And that's something that should be nonpartisan, that everybody, whether you're conservative or liberal, you should want to know that the vote was correct. So audit the vote. And that's one area that I think we really need to focus on going forward.
This is a thing that I think is a hard revealed preference, right? Because if the rhetoric from the left was true, right? Oh, it's a democracy and it's important that we protect that, then voter ID would be non-controversial. Then, right. Mail-in voting, specifically in the way it was done in the 2020 election, never happening again, would be non-controversial. And this goes to another thing that I think we need to stop doing, which is to say giving the left the benefit of the doubt. Because, if I say, right, as a regular smoker, if I say I want to quit smoking, but every time I find a cigarette, I'm smoking that thing, I don't want to quit smoking. Right, that is the reality. I don't. I might have all kinds of excuses, but end result, I don't want to quit smoking more than I want to smoke. And this is the lesson of basically everything the left does, where they tell you they have a value about something, and as soon as you say, well, maybe the premise that you're talking about here isn't too bad. Let's protect the thing that you value. The first thing they tell you is, no, it just needs to do what I want it to do, right? It just needs to elect Democrats. It just needs to promote socialism. It just needs on and on and on and on it goes. And this is the story of the left, right? So right on back to, don't give them any quarter, right? In the world of, I don't even know if we are going to be able to, not to sound horrendously just depressed over the situation, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do things to protect some of these elections. Certainly, Michigan is basically lost. It will, much like California, it will vote Democrat forever. Because that's the only choice now. And I think part of the problem that a lot of us are going to have is that statements like that are going to be true. And at the same time, they're coming for us. And this is the thing that has me more than a little worried, because the people who just won this election, the people who are now in power effectively across this country, seem to be doing everything they can to either completely crush everything that is America or create a civil war. And those are seemingly the options that they're leaving on the table. And so if that's the case, I don't know which is a worse option.
Possibly. I mean, if they come after us, that's one thing, but we won't come forward after them. So let's just say we just declare Texas as an autonomous zone and say, all right, Texas is leaving. If they want to come after us, then that's when it would start. But we're not going to, in a sense, declare war. We're just going to go and walk away.
Yeah. Well, fair warning.
I'm sure it's more complicated than that, but I'm just saying.
So
light idea.
Funny that you choose Texas, because my understanding is there's a ballot initiative right now to have a midterm election, because Texas votes at weird times sometimes, that says, hey, we're leaving the union. Look, you guys don't want to play by the rules anymore. We're going to put it to the people of this state, and we're going to leave the union because clearly we're not friends anymore. You've made that pretty obvious to us. So goodbye. I think, based on the last Civil War, that will result in Civil War II. Because I don't think they're going to want to let us go.
Right.
If you go live your life how you want and I'll go live my life how I want was a functional enough premise for these people, then federalism would have stopped them, right? So okay, California's a socialist utopia hell that I will never go to, But, and for the people of the Midwest, that is the answer, right? Okay, you want to go live like lunatics, just do it over there.
Away from us.
Exactly. But California is over, and most of the blue states do this, is that there is some state relatively nearby that they blame for all of their problems. I've got a friend that I talk to as often as life permits, Dave the Distributist. And Dave is out in California still, and I grew up there. And there is a universal truth of California, two of them that go together. One, there are no Republican politicians, effectively. Even the people with an R next to their name are Democrats from 8 seconds ago in California. And two, every problem in California is a Republican's problem. It's they did a thing, and so therefore we have horrible lives. And it's their incentive to keep coming after us is that they do this. So, look, I'm all down. If they want to let Texas and Wyoming and South Dakota and everybody secede from the Union, and fine. We'll go over here. We'll start a real America. You guys can collapse into socialist hell. I just don't think they're going to let us.
Yeah. All right, so what are your changing topics a little bit? Like, what are your thoughts on how it's been rumored a Patriot Party is going to be emerging or starting or splitting the GOP? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it is one of many bad choices on the table, right? And make no mistake, there are not particularly good choices on the table, in my opinion. And so I'd like to be angrier about this, but there are some realities that need to be contended with. This will mean that the left owns Washington for possibly a decade. Mm-hmm. And the implications of that are pretty staggering. If nobody has the power to overthrow the left on anything, then the left, I mean, we will have socialized medicine, 100%. Mm-hmm. We will have effectively banned guns. You know, if we destroy the GOP, don't get me wrong, they're not good at protecting gun rights, but they're better than literally nothing, which is what we'll have. And so when they get governors together and they repeal or amend the Second Amendment, that's it, guns will be gone. Mm-hmm. And the question of a Patriot Party is, can we get it going fast enough that we don't end up with a dictatorship of the left forever? And I don't know that the answer to that question is clear.
Right. I know when I was looking at like some of the stats for it, like the Patriot Party would end up being like the second dominant group. It would be like 23% would be the Patriot Party, and maybe like, was it 19 or 17% to be GOP? But yeah. The falsehood with that is not that we would have a 23% representation in Congress or Senate. It would be completely Democrat, because you're not going to be voting in 23% of a populace into our legislative body.
That 23% ends up looking a lot more like 5 to 10% representation, and the GOP will maintain 5 to 10% representation, which means that somewhere between 80 and 90% of all elected officials are very likely to be Democrat. Mm-hmm. And if that's true, we cross all of the supermajority lines. If that's true, then that's enough to revoke statehood if they so chose, right? So, dear Texas, dear Wyoming, you're no longer a state, now you're a territory, so F you, right?
You've been replaced with Puerto Rico.
Exactly. And, they're already trying to make D.C. a state, which is inherently unconstitutional, but they won't care, If they end up with 80 to 90% of the federal government, then it won't matter. And so I'm very, there's nothing I can do to stop it, but I'm very worried that if we do this, we will have destroyed the country, because there will be no functional way to fight back.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, because like the idea sounds nice, because I would love to have multiple parties like in the US, but the realism and there's such a difference between utopia and reality to that concept of having a Patriot Party, because we don't have a parliament type of government. Like in Poland, they had 16 candidates running for president, and then they have the top two go off onto a runoff. I like that form of a presidential race, but it's not something that would be working here in America. And so the concept of forming a Patriot Party and having now like multiple parties come up in America is like the ideal and sounds beautiful, but to your point, in realism, what will actually happen is that the seats will get filled by Democrats, and we will end up with an actual dictatorship.
Yeah. And I think, Chat brings up a relevant point here of most Republicans, or a lot of the GOP are effectively Democrats at this point anyway. Who do you think that 5 to 10% representation left in the GOP is going to be? Okay, maybe let's be honest, the Josh Hawleys of the world are going to go, oh, we're abandoning the Republican Party? Cool, I'll be over here in the Patriot Party. And maybe that brings some help, right? But I don't think it's going to be enough, and the left is not going to break here. because they're going to invariably they are sitting there salivating watching this happen, because what actually ends up happening, and by the way, if this happens, fully expect jungle primaries in every state in 10 years. And for those of you who don't know what a jungle primary is, it means that in the primary, everybody votes in the whole state on who's going to go to the final two. And what does that result in? Take a look at California. Your choices are Democrat, Democrat, or Democrat, right? And so, the political realities of this are pretty rough. And it's I don't know. There's a lot of people kicking out there's no political solution. At this point, I wonder if they're right. That there is going to be serious problems in the future, one way or another. Go ahead.
I was saying for a long-term strategy, I'm not seeing an immediate political solution, but before politics, it starts with popular culture, and that's why what is the trend of what's going on in our society, which for me, what I've been seeing, and I think a lot of people would agree, it's going back to our universities, how liberal our universities are. So another strategy would be for conservatives to be going in as professors. So that way, because that's how you're going to be transferring ideas down to students, because at the point that we're studying in universities, it is the point that we're the most susceptible to ideas and forming our perspectives of the world. So in the longer run, we need to get conservatives to be involved in academia and university professors.
Well, so here's where I say what everybody finds the most disheartening. Andrew Breitbart was wrong. Politics is not downstream from culture. Culture is downstream from politics. And this is why, go to universities and be professors if you want, right up until it is against the law for you to say something conservative.
Right.
And I've been saying that for quite some time, and I've had a lot of people come to me, oh, really, Don, what are they going to do? Ban your ability to say, insert something kind of, I don't know, make America great again? Well, what are they doing right now, right? Oh, if you get together at a MAGA rally, it's a terrorist rally. Yes, they're literally banning you from even saying it to people, and that will change the culture. In fact, it's fair to say, in some ways, it already has. People are by now, somebody somewhere should have got together and said, we're still angry about this, and nobody's doing it, right? And the moment the legal apparatus changed, by the way, once again, with a politician who overtly lied about what they were going to do to get into office, we again end up in this position where things are going to change, and that the culture is a big part of it. So we can work on changing the culture right up until we're outlawed, and we're already kind of there. So, there of the various criticisms of Trump, there was a lot of missed opportunity in those 4 years. And the hammer should have been brought down 50 times harder. And in all reality, I don't care what the press said. The press were if the choice is they call you a Nazi or a double Nazi, then by all means, call me a double Nazi. You're going to call me a Nazi anyway. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. For me, I'm so numb to being called a racist and a Nazi at this point. I'm just okay, you're actually hurting yourself by making us so desensitized to these words, because these are truly vile words that should be reserved to actual situations. Because when you're loosely calling everybody across the board we're just at the point that we're okay, fine, double Nazi it is.
Yeah, it's been it's been kind of a long-term thing for me. Again, I grew up in California, so this has been the story of my life. Right? You're a straight white male. You're evil. Well, okay.
Man, I miss the days when men can be men.
Yeah, right? I guess if that's the line of evil, okay, I'm evil. Whatever. That's cool. Next. But that is unfortunately not going to save us, right? So if And by the way they're already talking about it, right? If you're a straight white male who says anything, then you are oppressing the minorities, and so we'll put you in jail. Well, I guess I'm going to jail. And honestly, I'm not so sure I'm going to be willing to go to jail over that, but, I guess that's the way that it is now. And it's, I don't know, I think we are on very heavily losing tracks for a lot of those reasons, right? One, when we have power, we don't use it, right? They're most certainly, I was very happy to see right at the end, no critical race theory can be taught in schools. I would have been much happier to see that January 21st, 2017,
Yeah.
And
That was a bit late.
And this is kind of the thing, is that I don't know, you don't get popular saying that, which is a problem, right? And so, I'm not running for president anytime soon. I couldn't afford to do it. There's no way I could get it done. But we need somebody with at least that kind of mentality to go out there and get it done. And I think we might have just missed the boat, possibly forever, which worries the hell out of me. So, that said, though, I do have some super chats, and we are running a little bit longer than I intended to. So, give me just a second. I got to Matt Good, the fist bump emoji for $2.99. Thank you very much. Servant for $2. Dawn, your OnlyFans account is down again. Please fix. I'll because this is just a meme. I'll see what I can do about what you're actually talking about that is not an OnlyFans account. So, Polecat78 for $15. My largest concern with the attack in the park was the lackluster response from the cops. Protect and serve, but if not, it's only disappointing. Wouldn't refusal be worthy of reprimand at a minimum? I will go ahead and let you start this off, because I have stringent things to say.
I've always been a back the blue person, and those cops to me still don't represent like everybody in a sense. And I do believe that they should have stood up. It would have been an easy way to diffuse the situation. And also, when I was in DC, for the police officer to call the woman out and tell her to stop, that she's assaulting me, and that will result in her arrest. The cops should have done that. I don't blame the individual cops that were there. Who I blame is Mayor de Blasio. I blame the leadership, because those cops are being told to stand down. And so it was that was also the biggest shock to me of that day, was not the way that the crowd in BLM and Antifa were assaulting me and treating me and going after me, because I've been following and studying them for a while, and I understand that that's what they are. They're animals. What was
Yes.
disheartening for me that day was that I have been saying back the blue, and marching for that, and to have the police at the moment that I needed them to literally scooter away from me. And so that was unacceptable. But at the same time, like, in terms of actually fixing the situation, wouldn't be in reprimanding those individual cops that were present. It's the tone from the top and the leadership, and that's where Mayor de Blasio has failed.
You're not wrong. My general line on this is that municipal police departments suck, and for very similar reasons, right? There is effectively no good way to hold them responsible for anything at all, ever. And anyone who gets to engage in consistent irresponsibility tends to be a leftist. Just the way that it goes. And so, and look, it's not necessarily a swing on every single member of NYPD, but, welcome to, dear cops. If you hang out with gangsters, we think you're a gangster. Well, look, at some point, we're all going to end up turning on you because of this. You won't protect us. You will protect them. And even worse, you will come for us if we protect us. You're not leaving us a lot of outs here. And so I think there is a reality that we are kind of going to have to go after cops. to some degree, right? And no, I'm not, not in the way that Antifa does. Don't go up to cop cars and just start shooting into them. But look, if cops are going to stand there, and I know that, there's a Supreme Court precedent that says they don't have to do anything, and that's all well and good. But there is going to need to be something that holds them to account when they do wrong. There is. And I'm not inherently anti-cop, as much as a lot of my audience occasionally would like me to be. I am inherently anti-FBI at this point. But, again, I live in Amarillo, Texas, and my small town police department, when the riots started over summer, somebody went to organize a Black Lives Matter protest downtown here. And my local police department put out a thing that said, look, we respect your First Amendment rights. We will march with you to make sure that you're safe. And though they churched it up a little bit from here, it basically said at the end, if you riot, we'll shoot you. And guess what didn't happen in my city? It didn't burn. There was no rioting. Very peaceful and quiet, And good. That was the right answer. Do more of that. But this thing where, DCPD is pretty bad about this, where they'll let the left run around and riot, and then if you so much as say, well, just stop hurting people that I like, then they'll come for you, these sorts of things. And it's not it's not the kind of thing that is going to help. And look, dear cops, understand that these are the people, when the left says defund the police, we're the only ones saying, no, let them keep their jobs. And if you stop helping us out here doing your job, then fine, defund the police, right? And there's some memes that go around about this that are, the left defunds the police only to find out that the police are there to protect you from us. Look, man, you want to break into my house and you don't do anything particularly terrible, I'll call the cops. And you pound on my door at 2 a.m, I'll call the cops and say, somebody come take care of that. If there's no cops, I'll just open the door with a 12 gauge. Which answer do you actually want? So, with that though, I think that covers us for the moment. Before I turn this over to you for anything you have to say on our way out of here, I will say that your social media is down below. It is the top links in the description. So by all means, if you enjoy what you're watching, go over there, do the following, the subscribing, the sharing, and all of that kind of good stuff. With that, if there's anything else you want to say, go ahead.
I just want to thank you for allowing me to speak on your platform and bring me on. I think we had excellent conversation today, and I hope that our audience finds our free speaking thought process to be helpful for them and to provoke thoughts of their own. And please be sure to subscribe to my channel and to continue listening into our chats.
Absolutely perfect. I couldn't agree more. Thank you for coming on down. Thank you everybody for watching. And remember, fight the progressives wherever you find them, and fight them like your life depends on it, because it does.